Going live. Okay, hello everybody, or just one person or zero people, it does not matter. I am going to be a little bit off topic today as far as the focus of this channel is because it's brain behavior stuff. Um, I think that I have talked in the past about how like politically at least knowledgeable I have been and just how up to speed I am with all of the political happenings in the United States. Of course, I'm not up to speed on everybody's state. That would be too much for me to handle. But that's where I am today. So it makes sense because there is a lot of stuff happening, as you may know. And hi, Steve. I hope you're doing well. I am back. I have had to take a kind of a step back, a hiatus for a number of reasons, and I'll get into that, I guess, now before I talk about what exactly we're talking about in my title. But one of the reasons was it's just plainly I was sick, and I actually am still coughing a bit. And hi, Scott, glad to see you as well. From having what I believe was COVID. I was not in a good state. I had a lot of chest pain with what I was experiencing. And do you know how you have read, or maybe I have read, that the virus, when you get it, you're sick for about a week. Another week, you may be sick, but you're kind of getting a little better. And it's supposed to last about 2 weeks. That was not my case. In fact, I think that I have the Guinness Book of World Records for having had symptoms of this virus for so long. So I got it early March, and I really am just now starting to feel more like myself. I still do get out of breath pretty quickly. I can't really run, which I wouldn't really do anyways. But I can't really do a walk fast without feeling like very tired. So it has not been a very pleasant experience. So that has been one. And two, it's kind of intermingled with having had this illness was how I got it. So if I haven't told you, or if you are unaware, I got this illness having been very politically active. So there were two events, I guess, in which I could have got it. And I don't go out that much. So these were the only possibilities. One, it was canvassing. So if you don't know what canvassing is, it's basically going door to door, knocking at people's homes and trying to talk to them about your preferred candidate. And if you don't know, my preferred candidate is Bernie Sanders. I am a huge Bernie bro. That's for another day. And so I could have gotten it that way. Another way I could have gotten it was when I had volunteered to basically become a delegate selector. So when you have delegates to go and cast that final vote at the convention during the summer or whenever the hell it is, you are supposed to vote on those people who get sent there. And it was a very confined area. Interesting enough, there were 75 people there, or actually 77 people there to vote for the delegates for Bernie Sanders. So you are only able to vote for your preferred candidate. So 77 of us to Biden's 6 voters and it just spiraled from there. I think Elizabeth Warren may have had 1. So there was a lot of people there to vote for Bernie Sanders, and somehow, some way, Biden won the district, even though per representation would say, based off of like my little sample, we outnumbered Biden supporters. So that was strange. But that was the other way that I could have gotten it, was just really there to cast a vote on who to send to Milwaukee. As having said that, what has happened as far as my mood, my psychological state, whichever you want to call it. I call it kind of a political crisis or a political identity crisis because Bernie Sanders is no longer in the race. And I believe that there were some underhanded tactics in order to assure that that took place. That, again, is for another day. But when you go to so much lengths to help support somebody, when you go door to door for 15-hour days, just around neighborhoods, talking to so many people, to even giving up your Saturday mornings to go and even vote twice. You had to do 2 Saturdays for this. So 2 Saturday mornings in a row, you had to dedicate time just to vote for the people to send there. And you get sick with something, and the sickness is something that's serious. There were a few times when honestly I thought I was going to die, because my chest pains were so severe. I thought I was going to have to go to the hospital to at least assure that I didn't have a heart attack. Um, so when you are working so hard, but then get so sick from having put in all that time, all that effort, and all that energy, and risking essentially your life for that, it does not put you in a good state of mind. I'll tell you that much. It made me want to kind of reassess where I was. And I do believe this, to be perfectly honest, it's not even if, I believe that there were underhanded tactics to assure that Biden secured the nomination. And I almost died to make that not happen. It made me believe, and maybe I still believe this, I don't think there's any point anymore. I think that, and maybe you guys can convince me out of this, but I think the establishment, Democrats, the neoliberal wing of the party, I think they've won. If they are able to basically go against popular will, which was Bernie Sanders, there's no way you can convince me that people risk their lives, or risk their parents' lives, or not their parents, but loved ones' lives, to go cast a ballot for a candidate and waited in line for 8 hours, 8-hour days for Joe Biden. There's no way on earth you can convince me that is the case. No one did that. Yet that is what happened in various states throughout the country. You saw lines out the wazoo. Nobody voted for Joe Biden who stayed in that line. No one did. And when I see that so many people are enthusiastic about a possibility, and I see it so thoroughly crushed, what does that leave anybody with but kind of a place of despair? Is it worth even voting anymore? I'm not even sure. I think that if you personally believe that it's worth voting, do it. However, if you come to realize maybe, or come to at least understand that there is a possibility that whatever vote that you cast will not be honored, that is a real possibility. And that is why I don't even know what to do. I don't even know what to feel. If I feel that these people have won this fight for progressivism, what left is there but anger? What is there left? Scott Duke said, the Democrats will defecate on progressives every time. They have sold their souls to corporate money. Yes, I think that's right. Okay, so Volunteer for Awesome says the progressive fight is never really over, won or lost. I hope you're right. Don't let my opinions and my experience ever get you in a place of despair like where I am, because I saw so many people fighting so hard. I wasn't just the only one that was there working so hard on behalf of Bernie Sanders. There were hundreds of us just canvassing in my area. Um, and and so they had a really great ground game of very passionate people that believed in the cause of progressivism and believed that we can get to where we need to get in this country, for the simple fact that we should flip and have healthcare for people. I mean, that makes me angry that we don't have a universal healthcare system here. But that is another issue again. So that has been where I have been, just in case you have wondered, is kind of what exactly do I want to do politically? I don't think that I have as many choices as most other people. And that is because I have multiple sclerosis, which is a neurological autoimmune disorder that attacks the brain and spinal cord. So over time, most people with multiple sclerosis end up in a full state of disability where maybe they can no longer walk, some can no longer talk, and all. And so it basically you lose part of your body that you have. And I have always been an insanely active person. I used to run cross country. I was a captain for my physical fitness team, even in high school, a former competitive gymnast. I even still do gymnastics when I can. So I am an extremely active individual, but being active in relation to multiple sclerosis just isn't enough. Um, you, for my experience with this, I have been in a wheelchair. I have a wheelchair because there were times where I just couldn't really walk anymore, especially without being in immense amount of pain. I can't stand for a long period of time. I do often walk with a cane. It's an awesome cane, by the way. I love the aesthetics of it. But it's for my age, having to walk with a cane and having also had so much, basically, my body was the way I spoke to the world. I'm not a very, very good person when it comes to face to face interaction, but you get on doing like a physical performance of some kind. I loved doing that stuff. And so that was the best communication tool I had. And I, every day it kind of feels like it's getting taken away from me in some capacity, one way or another. So that has put me in another challenging position, is what to do next. I'm sure all of you are aware that there are a lot of disturbances lately, and this kind of, I guess, protest, if you will. If you want to go with the mainstream media route, you might say riots. Protests. And so I just want to back up and before I mention that, because I like to talk all over the place. If anybody wants to get me back on track, you're welcome to do so. But one thing that I was reading about fascism is how words are utilized. And one way to disparage people from protesting is get into the consciousness of others that may be on the fence about protesting or maybe on the fence about even what the cause is about, to believe that these protests are in some way violent, in some way rowdy, in some way basically taken over by anarchists, if you will, even though they don't know what the term means. And the mainstream media is really good at doing this. They call pretty much every flippin' protest a riot, regardless of if looting has occurred or not. And so I just make sure you're conscientious about that. There are people that do research how words are used in this context and which media outlet is the biggest offender for doing this. It just surprised nobody that it's Fox News, right? Oops, I'm sorry, I hit the microphone if that bothered anybody. As an aside here, Steve Alvarez Blue says, I will still vote, if only to help down ballot progressive/leftists. The real ones, not the co-opted ones. That is a great sentiment, and I understand why you would do that. I am so angry, and maybe this is something that you guys will help me get through too, and maybe you'll be able to convince me otherwise. I am so livid right now with the Democratic Party, the big D Democrats, that I don't want to support anybody down ballot. If anybody is being propped up or even considered themselves as a Democratic candidate, I will not vote for them. Um, I don't care who they are. That's at least my perspective right now because of how angry I am. It may very well change. I have until November to decide since my primaries are already gone. I have a while to decide this. So there's a lot of opportunity to have my mind change, but man, the anger is real, guys. And the anger, I can't even compare though, the anger of the country right now that everybody feels. I can't be the only one who also feels livid about how things are being handled, how why these things continue to happen as far as these police murders against unarmed black people, even if they're fucking armed. Why is it that they need to be shot? Why is that the first natural response? I don't know. It seems like other areas of the world are capable of not killing people who are armed and unarmed, incidentally. And it seems like their crime rates are even better in some cases than the United States, if not equitable. So, how is it that they're not killing their citizens, yet we, for the sake of law and order, need to shoot people dead? That's called extrajudicial justice, by the way, if you even want to call it quote unquote justice. And we are supposed to be a country where we are supposed to give everybody due process, where everybody's proven innocent before guilty, et cetera, et cetera. We all know that this is a hypocritical thing. And so I have said for years, if you don't follow me on Twitter, you might have seen me say this prior to the protests that have been going on recently, that it's only a matter of time before you push people so far that they'll snap because they have no more recourse and they've had no recourse for such a long time. It is a matter of time. And I think that that is what we are experiencing right now. And it's not like a snap, just, forget about everything, go crazy type of thing. I'm talking about a no longer utilize the same means in which everyone has said would work. I was listening to Cornel West speak to Anderson Cooper the other day, and it was a really interesting thing that he stated. He also, interestingly enough, made Anderson Cooper speechless, which I don't often see from Anderson Cooper, really anybody on CNN. But what Cornel West said is, it's not working. Black faces in high places doesn't work. We've been told that over and over and over again. It does not work. So when people realize none of this is working anymore, what do you do but get out and try to do something else? And so I am under the impression that if a protest is not disruptive in nature, maybe it won't work, because you have to inconvenience the people in power in order for them to even notice, to see you, to finally give you, because that's really what's happening, is just they graciously give you, I don't know, the right to not be shot by a cop. So that makes sense to me as to what has happened. I'm angry by these killings. There's times in my life, maybe not every single day, where it will still hit me about what happened with Trayvon Martin and what happened with Tamir Rice. These two little black kids, who one was killed by a loser thug, and the other one was also killed by loser thugs that happened to be cops. And in both cases, no justice was ever served for these families and these communities that lost the people they loved. You cannot bring back people. once they are dead, it is a permanent state of being. It's not like, oh, we just removed them temporarily, but they'll be back. Don't worry. It's not like that. It is when people die and you love them so much, it is a loss that is unspeakable. There is really no way to explain that loss and that void. Imagine that happening over and over and over and over again. Imagine that happening and they're murdered. And then imagine that happening and they're murdered by the state. And in state sanctioned murders with no justice. When we're all told that the way it happens is you put people in power, they will respect that power. You have to assume that all the people in power know or agree with the statement that all people are created equal. And that sentiment is not working. Hedgehog Sonic 11 says that as a Black kid who also has chronic illness, I want to get out there, but if I were to contract the virus, I would certainly die. That is another thing to definitely be conscientious about. And I do want to speak on that. I think that is a really, really vital thing that isn't even being discussed. And so thank you for kind of getting me back on track to what I'm actually talking about here. But I want to protest. I want to get out there and really, stand with my community, stand with the community and all over the country, really, but stand with, the family of George Floyd, all of these things, because it eats your soul, guys. It eats you away. But when you have a disability, when you have an illness that may be susceptible to coronavirus or COVID. So my illness is an autoimmune disorder. And so it is highly susceptible to having a bad outcome if contracted. In my case, I did get it and it was horrible. And I did almost die a couple of times. I don't know. I think it's just, I guess, not my time, really. I can't explain why. I am recovering more, but also my guess is that if you have a illness that creates some sort of disability or just an illness period, you may have a rougher time with it regardless. And right now, the virus isn't gone. It's still very much circulating throughout society. And all of these tensions that have boiled up and have made all of us as community members go out and protest into the street, because what have they left you with but nothing? I heard somebody say the other day that when you have no more hurt available, when that has all been used up, all you have left is rage. And that is absolutely true. And I am flabbergasted by the fact that there are so many people in the United States that aren't enraged by what has happened and what continues to happen and what will most likely continue to happen. I don't understand that type of pathology in your thought processes. I just don't. I think that if you cannot understand on any level as to why people are hurting in this circumstance, you are a horrible human being and probably why we're in this situation in the first place, period. But as I was saying, as far as having a disability, there is a argument. I don't know if you guys have seen this argument or not, or at least read it or anything like that. If online activism counts, does it count, or should everybody, for, I guess, lack of a better term, be brick and mortar activists and really be in the face of others and be quite visible in that regard? I honestly think both avenues of activism, of protests, if you will, work and should work together in some capacity if possible. I think that there is room for online activism, whether it's intelligence collecting. There are some online activists who monitor police broadcasts, the radios, the CBB radios, as far as where they're located, where they're coming from, and monitors their activity through there, and then informs other protesters on the ground what's going on and if they should expect more cops coming to the vicinity and so forth. So there are those who sit at home and just listen to a radio. They're needed. There are people that are absolutely needed to basically help organize protests to begin with. A lot of organization tools are online, whether it's I don't know if this is a safe way to do it, but whether it's a Google Docs where you just kind of make sure that you have important contacts as far as medical is concerned, food and water. If you expect to be out there for the long haul, maybe there's a document that someone can get together to assure that all of those things have been ticked off. Maybe someone creates a Slack channel and basically organizes people to be at certain locations at certain time and assure that someone is at a location at every time, and make sure that people are paired up so that no one individual is by themselves, because people go missing when they are alone. And so that is another thing to keep in mind. If you want to go to a protest, make sure that you have a protest buddy. If you don't have a protest buddy, find one. Because that is, not really enough on its own, though, ultimately, for change. Someone has to go out and actually make a change. Yeah, I wouldn't say that by and large on its own that online activism is effective, because again, online activism is quite invisible, is largely invisible. And so I wouldn't say that that is effective in and of itself, but I wouldn't discount it as a tool. I wouldn't discount it at all as a tool. And there are people that completely hand wave it away. Online activism is not activism. Go away. And I think that what they don't realize is that people who cannot be out in the field, who cannot be present in that regard on the ground because of the fact that they are vulnerable to a pandemic that is currently going through the country, because maybe they are in a wheelchair and it's exhausting just to basically get anywhere. If you have to think of all the logistics of using a wheelchair, and even what if where you go doesn't have any ramps or hard surfaces for your wheelchair to go over? What is it that activists or people who are disabled, what can they do? And why is it that because so many people just completely discount online activism as a sufficient tool, they are in effect discounting so many people who are disabled, who cannot be out in the field but still want to make a difference, because maybe their thoughts are limited in nature. Maybe they can't think outside of the box as to how they could possibly be helped with someone who is not present. Even though I just listed, I think, 3 things how that is. And that's just me going, yeah, they can monitor police radios and provide intelligence. There are online activists that follow right-wing hate groups and follow when they plan on showing up. And that's needed too. So there is room for people with disabilities. And I am sick and tired of having this dichotomy of online activism versus in-present activism, as if they should be opposing forces, because actually they work together, and they work together quite well. And they also work in an inclusive way. I mean, let's not discount. It is okay if you are afraid to be in front of a police officer. That is a sufficient and real fear that in the United States you honestly should have. especially if you are Black or Latino or anything that doesn't look white. If that is you and you are afraid, do not go. You are not obligated to go. But if you want to still help, we can find a way for you to help. Even if you maybe are white and you are afraid to go, don't go. But don't think that is the limit of what you can possibly do. I think that it's terrible that it is perceived that if you are afraid of something and you choose to preserve, I guess, to avoid that fear stimulus, that thereby you are a coward. No, you're just listening to your fear drive and you don't want to allow that fear to overwhelm you. And it's a legitimate fear. I think that's short-sighted and coward and an inappropriate use of the word cowardly. If you want to tell me what's cowardly, it is multiple cops beating up on one person for the sake of we were afraid for our lives. It is a cop who shoots an unarmed Black man in the back as they are running away from them. That is cowardly. It is not cowardly if you are afraid to go to a protest because of the fact of other people like the cops being cowards. That is not a cowardly act. That is a legitimate goddamn fear. And I don't know why it's perceived in, I guess, the social consciousness that not going, you are there by a coward. I don't understand that. And maybe somebody can enlighten me as to why that's the case. Sorry. I don't know what you're talking about as far as ableism is concerned. Volunteer for awesome. There are always a slim minority. Police culture. Stripper. Dang, your screen name, man. Stripper liquor. Hello. Stripper liquor says, there's a problem in police culture. I worked as civilian support services in LE, including undercover, and the court's prosecution. I know I'm going to skip some of what so that I can kind of get to the main importance of what you're saying here. I know how deep it goes. I assisted elected officials, police chiefs, DAs, and worked with regular officers too for 15 years. Yeah, it's a culture that is in and of itself. And you know how people are like, no, it's just the bad apples doing all of this. Okay, well, where are all those good apples telling the bad apples to get the fuck out of here? Or where are all those good apples, that are watching a cop, choke out somebody to death? Why aren't they, choking him out to death? Doesn't he make you look bad? Do they not? Do they even exist? These good apples? I don't know. I don't think they do. And to be perfectly honest, I have someone in my family who is a cop. And, I love her to death as a person, but not as a cop because of the culture that is surrounded, that is created and thereby reinforced by this, I guess, cop community. And then they kill somebody, right? These cops, they kill somebody extrajudicially, and then they still get their pensions. They still get paid. Like, what type of job security is that? We have a pandemic that is not only killing people, but has created in some places 30 to 40% unemployment rate. Yet people who murder other people still have a job and they still get paid no matter what. And now we have people that are out of a job, out of money. What type of society is this? Is this not bonkers to you? It is bonkers to me. Mm, I don't know the where you're going with that one, so I'm not sure if we're going to read it. Okay, so Volunteer for Awesome says it's an insular community. You basically rely on guys having your back every day. Yeah, it is. So one experience that I had, to stay off topic here, is my family member invited me to a reception of some sort. I'm not really sure what it was, where the cops were getting congratulated for something, and it was a small knit, like a force, like the drill team or something along those lines. It was a small set of them. It wasn't like the entire force. They were, getting awards, or I'm not really sure what they were doing. I wasn't paying attention to that. Uh, and it fascinated me, the language that they used. It wasn't like cursing or something type of language. What fascinated me was how they spoke about the community in which they oversaw. It was it was as if they talked in a way that was already saying, I'm afraid of them. They will hurt me. This is war against a community. And this is like nothing happened. This is a group of cops congratulating each other and celebrating, and then having a catered dinner. This is not anything that is high pressure or anything like that. I used to be in the military myself, and we did not address a community like that. Now, there are some people in the military a lot that are bad, that are really bad, really bad. Um, but we still didn't talk to about the people we were around who were civilians. We didn't talk about civilians as if they were what they would harm us. We talked about civilians as if, we needed to actually provide some respect towards them, because the civilians could go and tell your officer, your overseeing officer, that they encountered you, and then you can get written up. That was always a risk. That I think that was the biggest fear most people had about civilians. The cops, that is not the case. They talked about the city I grew up in, that I know quite well, the people here, a lot of the people here are beautiful people. They talked about these people in my community as if they were in a goddamn war zone, as if, this was, I can't even, I was so shocked by it, how they spoke so disrespectfully about the community too. And it wasn't an intentional thing. They didn't actively say, we don't like these people, let's disrespect them in this manner or form. They just basically always refer to the community as if they are the enemy, as if they have to keep each other's backs, that their number one job was to make it home. So don't allow anybody to overtake you, etc. I don't think that's a number one job of a cop. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, especially if you have firsthand experience of this, but isn't the number one job of a cop to serve and protect their community? I don't know. I feel like that is like the baseline where they should be. And to think that your job was to make it home, you are a fucking asshole. There are people that aren't even cops that get fucking killed every day on the job. But they never address a loved one. Like, my number one job is to make it home. The most dangerous job in the country is being a logger. You know, cutting down the trees and, going through the water and the rivers and transporting that stuff. That is the most dangerous job. Do you think you hear loggers saying, my number one job is to make it home? No, you don't. And it would make sense why you don't, because most people don't even know that that's the most dangerous job in the country. I don't see loggers saying, any like the logs are the enemy and my job's the enemy and my family's number one. I need to come home first. Isn't the job of a cop, and this is how I perceived being in the military, isn't my job not to come home, but to do what I said was important to do, like serve and protect. That isn't that my job? Isn't that my number one goal? Because if I'm too focused on going home or making it home, but I also simultaneously know, and I guess people assume that that's the risk that you take on the job for being in these positions, like in the military and a cop. Um, why should you be respected for that? Like if you're not even going to honor that, if you think that you can have it both ways, you can have your number one job be make it home, but also get the respect for that not being your number one job. For, well, the risk, you knew the risks, you knew that you could be hurt on this job or killed. So the risk, number one job. It just doesn't vibe to me. Maybe it'll vibe to you guys. Kevin, I used to be on the wrong side of the law. I've had cops point guns at me, and I've been charged with crimes I didn't commit. That is just part of the business of being a POS citizen. I don't know what that stands for. I don't know if that means a piece of shit citizen. Do any of you guys know Boots Riley? He's an interesting character, but he had a whole thread about explaining how criminality is not only treated in society, but also why it's there in the first place. And I think if we start asking kind of deeper questions, not where are the criminals, not what do the criminals do, but if we start asking the deeper questions of why are there criminals in the first place? What is it that as a society we've decided to criminalize, and why and why? What about the things that we have decided not to criminalize? Are any of the things that we've decided to criminalize, sorry, that's my dog. are, are any of the things that we've decided to criminalize capable of being, I don't know, not criminalized if we took care of whatever is bringing it about in the first place? Imagine this. How many people would resort to stealing, for instance? Maybe they steal something because they want money. How many people would there not be that need money to feed their family but can't get it? How can we reduce that? How can we make sure that everybody's family is fed, so those people who would be criminals, if otherwise, don't become criminals? Why isn't that not the question that we're asking? I don't know why that's not the question. Peter Maurer, puppy. Um, yeah, Volunteer for Awesome mentioned something. If you're not aware of it, it is very easy for interaction to become very depersonalized. That's absolutely true. But I honestly think that has to do with that culture too, of of referring to people as if it's an us them issue, right? As if there's kind of a hierarchy of worth. This is all a fascism technique, by the way, is to assure that there is a lot of division, so that people who are on that side are referred to in a way that aren't on your side, so that that you are incapable of thinking of them as if they could possibly be equal to you. And I feel like a lot of cops, too many cops, get it in their heads because of deciding the society in which they are surrounded by, and also outside society, outside pop culture. This is created in their heads because we have such a militant society to begin with. But they can't easily get it into their heads that they are battling an evil force in society that they have to stomp out. And it's not really to sort of serve and protect people anymore, but it's more about finding the enemy. It's more about identifying these vicious people. Well, they're just fucking people, guys. They're just people. Um, Yanks, Yankees Rain says they are not here to protect us. They are an occupying force. Yeah, I think it could be easily argued that. Oh, Torrential Rage mentions that the person I refer to, Boots Riley, is so good on Twitter. Yeah, if you do not follow him on Twitter, go follow him if you have a Twitter account. He's very insightful, I think, and he when he tweets, they are very long threads, but give those threads a read when you can find the time because they will go, huh, I never thought about it that way. There are some most that doesn't happen to me a lot on Twitter where I find it even a long thread and I am struck by being informed by saying, wow, that's a perspective I never even thought. That is a very rare thing that can happen on that platform. But somehow there's not a one thread I think he's done that I've read at least where that hasn't been the case, where I haven't had that reaction like, wow, I never looked at that from that perspective before. So go follow him. It's a really good. He's pretty flippin' smart. Hi, Gary. Hi. Torrential Rage says he is smarter than we are. Yeah, probably, probably, definitely smarter than I am. And he's very. I am my the sun is setting, so I'll probably be doing this for another 10 minutes and then I'll call it a day. There are some things that I also want to mention as far as like just housekeeping type of things. So I mentioned about my whole political identity crisis and how maybe you guys will convince me out of it. I do believe there is a place for people with disabilities in any movement. And I really, really hope that everybody considers that. I don't believe that it's ableism if somebody who doesn't have the disability brings someone in who does and helps them find their role that they need to take because we all need a role, especially if we believe in a cause. We all want to be there alongside our brothers and sisters. We want to be there. But if we're excluded from the movement, how can we help? So it's easy for me to say, well, we can do XYZ. Honestly, where's that opportunity? I don't know who to contact in order to monitor police communications. Who there, so just be thoughtful of those instances and don't assume that because someone cannot get out there that they are cowards. Don't ever assume that. Don't make it a dichotomy of us them, internet activism, online activism versus what did I call it? Brick and mortar activism. It's not a versus there. It is with. They are both supposed to be this and that. And I do believe that there is a place for everybody. And don't just take it from me. But I just want everybody to be able to be involved in any way possible. I, in this instance, haven't been able to be involved. Not only am I still showing symptoms of having this stupid virus, but my movement abilities aren't as strong. It hurts to stand, and when you're already in pain, and then could basically be in more pain for doing for being out there. And I just don't think it's practical for somebody for somebody like myself. I can't speak for everybody, but I know myself, I can't be out there right now, regardless of the fact that I do want to be. Um, and yeah, so that's where I am. I don't want anybody to discount that. Oh, oh, Peter Maurer, that he said, I missed the discussion on your political crisis. Is that from your last live stream? No, I mentioned it a little earlier, I think today. It's more of a what type of thing is effective politically. And the thing that I really thought we could try this time and we could really win this time, that avenue, I feel like it's closed, and we have to come up with something else, because just as um in my mind peaceful protests aren't effective in getting people's attention, neither is traditional electoral politics. Again, you guys are more than welcome to disagree with me and change my mind on this. I welcome it because I don't want to be there. Because it makes me feel like a lost puppy, essentially. Like, what do I do? What do I do now that I believe that this avenue is closed? Maybe you guys have some recommendations. Um, okay. Kevin says, speaking of COVID-19, how come it's suddenly acceptable to gather and protest when a month ago it was quote unquote selfish? So there's a difference in the causes of the protest. So that's something that also, and time, right? So right now, what is being perpetuated about COVID-19? I'm not hearing much of any of it. In fact, the things that I have heard are from the official government stance on the matter is, oh, we're fine. And and pretty much every what state government is in the process of reopening, if not fully open. Again, as far as like social distancing orders being removed and all of those things. So if if we're all told that we're fine, you can go out and spend in the economy again and go to work and get back to business as usual, why why would you think that the circumstances are the same and that they're equivalent? Why would you think that? Also, the other protests, weren't they about protesting about, like, I don't know, wearing fucking masks? The tyranny of the government to wear a mask, or to recommend you wear a mask, or to recommend that you practice social distancing. That is not tyrannical, by the way. So if you believe that that is tyrannical and a worthy protest, that is a privilege I will never know. Like, how privileged are you to believe that? It's also a privilege to believe that there is a moral equivalence between the protesting against COVID, spreading COVID, basically, or COVID, okay, protests against preventing the spread of COVID, which happens to particularly affect people who are in vulnerable positions, people who are sick, people who are elderly, etc. How is that the same as protests against someone who was murdered dead in the streets? How is that the same when over and over again you see people in your community killed time and again and no justice served, and the state approving that? How are those morally equivalent with each other? Like, I'm sorry, whoever you were, but I think that's a dumbass question. Uh, Torrential Rage mentioned something about we need to focus on down ballot candidates like I'm going to butcher this name. I know who you're talking about, though. Sahid Buttar and Lindsay Boylan. We need to focus on workplace mobilization. Yeah, we need to. Here's something that I think a lot of people don't think. I mean, I believe that a lot of you get it here, but do you realize that we spend so many hours, so many years of our life? Just calculate how long you're expected to work in this society. Calculate those and how many hours in totality that is of your life. Don't you think it's weird or unjust, if you will, that we spend so many hours of our life, so many years of our life working, yet we have no democratic say in the matter? We can't tell our boss that, well, can we have a vote on what we work on today? We can't do that. It's either your boss says you're doing this and you can't say anything about it. In a country that has the idea of democracy solidified in the conscious, how is that okay? How is it that it's okay to only have democratic rule in finite circumstances as opposed to every aspect of society? That doesn't make any damn sense to me. Does that make any sense to anybody? Sorry, it's getting darker, guys. Uh, all right, so because of the fact that it's getting darker, and I honestly don't want to use my harsh lights, and I've already been talking for an hour, I'm gonna call it for today. If you know my normal videos on this channel, I do create brain and behavior videos about how we think and why we think the things that we do. There are some things that I've presented to people that I don't actually agree with. I think that it's not a good, healthy way to look at something or to conclude about a process that may be happening. So I actually want to talk about that. There are a lot of things that I am thinking of, but I don't think I'm going to be making my videos so heavily produced. They're hard. They're hard to do, essentially. They're very time consuming when I could just sit here and talk to you guys about it. And that would be less time consuming and more interactive too. And you guys would have the ability to ask questions too. John Hogan says, be your own boss and you can do what you want. Maybe. You're still confounded to society's expectations of you to dedicate those hours of your life to working. I think it's completely mind-boggling to me why that's acceptable. We don't live forever. We have a finite period of time on this earth. Shouldn't we be spending it not with bosses or becoming bosses or following bosses' orders? Shouldn't we be spending that time, that finite time, with the people that we care about the most, that if we were to die today, we would never see again, or they would never see us again? Can you imagine leaving for work and basically, I don't know, dying, and then all because of the system that we have? Because we live in a system right now that technically so many people actually don't have to work. It's just work for work's sake. And I don't think that that is healthy for society to be under. So I'm going to call it here today. I'll probably do some more live streams because I like talking to you guys straight like this. I enjoy reading what you have to say and what you think. William Johnson says, I'm glad you're back. As much as I love BBF, I told you from the beginning, this is your niche. I hope to see more sorry, it jumped away. Political Amber in the future. You are awesome. My name's not Amber, but thank you. If that's a saying, I'm sorry that I don't know that particular saying, but my name isn't Amber. My nickname's Andy, so if you want to call me Andy, please do. I like that nickname, so please, I would not be opposed to you guys using my nickname at all. All right, guys, it was very nice talking to you again, and we'll talk again. We'll probably talk more about political stuff too. I actually have an idea that I want to kind of throw out there with you guys a little bit later, but we shall see. All right, guys, have a good one. Oh, bye.